Hey everybody.
Mm.
Uh, hey guys. Yeah, sorry, I was just at an appointment. Um, and this is the closest thing I can find to somewhere with Wi-Fi. So kind of at a busy intersection. So if you hear a car crash or whatever, context, you understand what's happening. Um, it's cool to see you guys. I really love when we traveled Europe. Europeans are so, I don't know, nice, kind, kind of blunt, but except for England. They're not so blunt there. They're soft. They're very soft. But everywhere else, nice, like straight but soft. Here in America, you're either soft or you're too sharp. I don't know. So it's nice. Miss you guys. That was a weird introduction, by the way. Complete non sequitur. I'm going to be talking about marriage. I hope I can share my screen. Yes, I can. And this is it. This is why I needed a Wi-Fi to show you guys this. But this is a talk that I gave. We just had our second 24-hour summit for High Noon. Oh yeah, I work for High Noon. If you guys don't know who I am, context. I joined this movement 14 years ago. I got blessed in marriage 10 years ago. We have 3 boys, and I grew up in a world where I was convinced that I would never get married because it was bad for the environment. No, kids were bad for the environment. But marriage was just bad for my heart because my parents got divorced. A lot of my friends' parents got divorced. Most of my friends just never got married, to be honest. I'm 40, guys. I'm 40. It happens. It happens. We turn 40. But when you're at 40 and you're not married, it's a very interesting situation. And I think most of society actually is going in that direction. Because I think a lot of people deep in their heart are actually so afraid of marriage. This has been my kind of study for the past few years. Is like, why are people so afraid of marriage? So I'm just kind of making a case for why marriage matters, because I have a feeling like maybe none of you are blessed, maybe some, but probably not. So our work with High Noon, we used to help people fight bad habits, and then we realized that's kind of a losing battle, because when you're fighting your bad habits, it's like you're down in the muck, you're down in the gross, I don't know, muddy water, and you're covered in it, and you're fighting these mud monsters, and they're going to win. They're eventually going to tire you out. You need to be able to rise up from that and figure out, what does it look like if you're not covered in mud anymore, if you're building a life that you consciously really want. And most people don't have that for marriage. They have like a vague sense that I want to be happily married, kind of, but they don't know what that means. They don't necessarily have so many great examples themselves. But a vision is extremely important. If you want any semblance of happiness in your life, it starts with being aligned with your vision. Because when you set the vision, then you can measure, am I moving in that direction or not? Okay, so consider this just a pitch for marriage, because I feel like it's one of the most important things that we can ever do in our life, and it's so undervalued, very much so. Okay, so the micro and the macro are intrinsically, undeniably connected, right? So I learned about systems. I heard about the psychologist, but he was also a statistician, who was talking about every system, man-made or otherwise. The big is connected to each individual part of that system. So you can impact change of any system, even if you have like a little desk job in a big corporation. I don't know if you saw out here, but there's one guy, a union worker, who took on Amazon, the whole Amazon, which is probably one of the biggest companies in the world. And he completely changed their policies out in New York City, which is phenomenal. He's one dude. So our impact, sometimes, you feel like, what am I doing? I don't have any impact in the world. It's not true at all, actually. It's kind of brainwashing from culture of like a media of like, you suck unless you buy this jacket or unless you buy this car or whatever. That's this marketing, which is very disempowering. But the real truth of the matter is that we're all extremely important equally. Okay, and so our marriages, the quality of our marriages and our family impacts society to a very large degree. Okay. I wanted to from I talk to a lot of people, I counsel a lot of people, mentor a lot of people, whatever. And there's a lot of people who I talk to that are like, we need to save Korea. We need to bridge the gap between North and South Korea and all that. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Well, if you can impact that, that's great. And I know some people have been to North Korea, and that's cool. But for the most part, we actually have this 38th parallel in our hearts. If it's very easy to say, why doesn't North and South Korea just unite? Well, if you have somebody in your life that you cannot forgive, think it's the same, but just at scale, on a larger degree. It's two cultures that cannot really see eye to eye. And this is a great practice for us because when you get married, you will reach a point in your marriage where you just want to strangle them or you want to give up or whatever the case may be. And that's actually the 38th parallel of your heart. That's when all you see is the division between you and your spouse. And when you can overcome that, and it's not just one time, it's many times, what you're doing is you're creating this force of reunification between a couple that then expands to the family, that gives you more bandwidth to take care of other people in your community, and it goes outward in a very practical and real sense. It sounds very principled, like on a board with charts and like, you guys know, like a DP lecture, but it's actually extremely, when you are connected to your spouse, you feel like you can take on the world. And when you're at odds with them, it feels like you can't do anything. It feels like you're really stuck. And that's our gift in a sense, right? Because at the end of the day, all major problems that we're contending with, they're all these big problems. We have a tendency to think that some organization outside of ourselves is going to provide the answer, when in fact, the nucleus of every single one of our problems stems within the family. Okay, all poverty stems within the family. Government, like, how could you be a part of a government that oppresses people if you yourself are filled with love because you're from a loving family? It's broken people making broken solutions, and they're creating a mess, right? But when people are really fulfilled and whole, they want nothing more than to spread that to other people. It just becomes a part of your identity. That's what I do for a living because I'm so filled up. If I was a broken person, which I was, honestly, prior to joining this movement, and I really fixed my heart, now I have the bandwidth to take care of a lot of people, and it's extremely rewarding. But it all stems back, like, as much as you think, oh, what about these poor people over here? You're like looking at Ukraine. I was giving a talk similar to this at Sunday service. I'm out here in Colorado, and there are some Ukrainians. We're like a sister community to Ukraine. And there are Ukrainians there just after the war had broken out. And I was thinking, my God, what am I going to talk about? I'm supposed to talk about marriage and family. And I felt kind of weird because there are these people and their families were in Ukraine. I was like, this is terrible. But then I remembered this really essential point that if you cannot impact change, like right now, I can't really do anything directly for Ukraine, at least not of my mind that I'm aware of. But what I can do is not freak out. I can be a stable force. Oh man, I can be a stable force for other people so that I can take care of these Ukrainians, right? And that starts in my home. So I can impact something far outside of me by making sure that what I'm directly influencing is in good shape. And that's my family, that's my marriage. And that's something that you can contribute to, okay? The other thing is, I'm sure you've heard the story of the fall a million times. Chapter 2, as my spiritual mom says, she's Japanese. Chapter 2, never say sex, by the way. So, you have chapter 2 problem, this kind of thing. We all heard about the story of the fall, but what about the rise, right? This entire chaos emanated from a couple who were kind of malaligned and fighting each other and disunited, and that created this fractured love that produced children who are dysfunctional, and then a weird family that just broke apart, and then a broken society, etc., etc. So it all also, whatever solutions are also going to come from couples, one couple. That's our idea of a true parents. But also, we're meant to be the fourth Adam. This is like a weird concept that people don't understand. True parents are meant to be like the third Adam, second Eve, and we're meant to be the fourth. We're Adam and Eve. We're supposed to be representing, and this honestly saved my own marriage. If you guys can understand this point, it's extremely important, because I reached a point in my marriage when everything was externally so challenging. And we were supposed to fly. Our trip got canceled. All our kids got so sick. And my wife and I just started fighting like crazy. And nobody really prepares you for moments like this. I didn't have any family or anything to support me. So we were just really stuck. And in a dark moment, I looked at my wife and I said, honey. And it's funny because even when I'm really mad at her, I still call her honey, which is a good word to the wise. Any guys out there, remember that. It's like a pro tip. But I was like, honey, if it weren't for the blessing and my understanding of the blessing, I couldn't continue. This would be the end of our relationship. It's too much for me to handle. But I understood that the blessing is bigger than myself. And so even if I can't relate to her as an individual, I can understand that this is like an entity. This relationship that we're in is an entity. And if I take care of that in time, things will repair themselves. And they totally did. My wife and I are doing so amazing. And anyway, we've done a lot. But it's proof that expansion of all good and bad really emanates from us as individuals and then as couples. And when you got a rhythm and it gives you all sorts of powers to bleed out into society. Okay. But it causes you to have multiple deaths and resurrections. And what that is, in society, they teach you that if you don't like somebody, then you just get rid of them, right? It's a very disposable culture. If you don't like your phone, look, I don't know if you guys, I have 3 boys, right? Look at my phone. Look at this thing. Look at that. It's like falling apart. I've had to replace the screen 3 times in the past couple of years. Right? And society says, oh, look, it's broken. I need an upgrade. I should get an upgrade. And guess what? Same thing with love. That's how people treat love. It's like, oh, they're not treating you right. Get rid of them. And so we're trained from a very early age to see that limitations mean that's the end of the relationship. But no, that's just the end of your capacity to love. That's the limits of your love. And if you can let that kind of pass and break down, you will experience a new expansion of your capacity to love. And that's where the resurrection comes in. That's when you are reborn, because you're a newer, more updated, more advanced version of yourself. This only happens within marriage. Because within marriage, it's this commitment that houses the best and the worst of you will come out. The best of you meaning you'll find a way to give to your spouse even when you have nothing left to give, because you'll connect yourself to a higher source of love. But the worst is also sometimes you'll be very petty and you'll be very judgmental, and it's like the worst aspects of your character will bubble up, and that's for you to deal with. That's the work that is part of marriage that, again, people don't really talk about. It's like, oh, I'm in love with you, so let's get married. But they don't talk about the work, and it's work, but it's the best work that you could ever do. So it's this transition from me to we. So marriage in the Bible is like, only the people who can go fit through the eye of the needle will get into heaven. This is like the eye of the needle to me. It's like, if you can get past your ego and your selfishness and truly become one with another person, you'll experience heaven. Not over there, in here, like in your marriage, you can experience heaven. We live in Chanoguk, where at any point during any day, you can experience as much of the kingdom of heaven here on earth as you want. But it's just our limitations and our old habits that keep us back, especially in a marriage. Marriage is a commitment to the process, kind of like I mentioned before, the process of the blessing, not just the person. And people mix that up, because if you go by your feelings, you're in big trouble, because our feelings go up and down and all over the place. But if you're really clear on your commitment to love this person, even when you don't want to, you'll find this amazing aspect of yourself can emerge. In principle, there's this concept of origin, and then it divides, and then union, and that's us. When we get blessed and married, we divide into 2 people. Now you are not just you are 2 people. You are you, and you are your spouse. They say husband and wife, a blessed couple, is the face of God, right? But actually uniting in mind and heart and spirit is extremely tricky, and it takes time. It takes like fitting this puzzle piece, takes a lot of jiggling and wiggling and work. It's effort, but it's amazing effort. And we need to shed our old selves. You were raised, the first 2 realms of heart, to be a child and to be a sibling, is actually extremely selfish for the most part. You kind of learn how to share with sibling in the second realm of love, but we all have a lot of selfish habits, and you don't really see them until you get into that relationship and lived with somebody for quite some time. But again, it's kind of like they're sanding you down and rounding you off, these sharp edges, And that's through the process of learning how to love each other. But that becomes stable footing for all other people. I mentioned that Ukrainian example, right? But the world needs stable footing. Everything is unstable right now, okay? The whole world is falling apart. All systems, schools, religion, everything is in question and is being severely challenged right now, at the very least, if not completely falling apart. Our financial systems, everything, right? So there's instability everywhere you look. Uh, so you can't really rely on anything. So everything outside of us is changing, and that's an amazing time. It's anxiety inducing if you're relying on your external environment for your validation or whatever, but it's extremely empowering if you are stable yourself and if you can create a stable relationship with somebody, because then the world starts coming to you for stability. You become a source of stability and a sanctuary of peace, not a sanction. We need to be stable internally. And this is great time. If you guys are not blessed, and I think most of you are not, this is amazing time to become stable yourself, emotionally, learn about yourself, spiritually, learn about your spirituality, how to keep yourself positive even during difficult times, how to keep moving your body even when it doesn't want to move. These are all extremely important skills, because when you find somebody else who's like that, then you have just become a superhuman, especially during these shaky times. Okay, so Chanuguk starts from the inside out. It's not going to rain peace on us. Peace starts from within. And it's going to start for the individuals that form strong marriages. And there's a lot more work than you guys might think. It's not automatic at all. So love is a stabilizing force for our world, but love has to be generated. It's not given, it's generated by the right thoughts and the right feelings. And again, when you have that, like my wife and I have been on this really great groove, we are now able to take care of so many more people. But when we're struggling, it's hard to give to anybody. I'm almost done here, guys. So it is kind of like spinning plates though, okay? Meaning when you have responsibilities for your community, when you have a job, when you have kids, it's like, how do you maintain it? And some people just let things fray and fall apart. And again, this is part of the fear mongering. If you look at movies, they always show families as being the hardest thing in the world, and nobody can do it right, and it's all what a mess, and it's always like a joke. But they never show just happy families. Like our family doesn't struggle that much, you know, it really doesn't. We love each other. We laugh a lot. We run around naked as a family. I know it sounds weird. It's a Mongolian thing. I blame them. But we just laugh. We're just like having a fun time 95% of the time. And every once in a while, there's a fight or whatever. That helps to resurrect stuff. But that took 10 years of practice and a lot of trial and error, okay? So balancing the blessing is, in the past, I think a lot of your parents had this extremely difficult challenge to, do you sacrifice your family for the providence, or do you sacrifice the providence for your family? And now it's like, no, the power of your family is your offering to the providence. There's no separation. So if you want to create world peace, create an amazing family. That's foundational. That's essential. It's non-negotiable. But it's hard work, okay? And all three blessings. So if you look at the world, there's a lot of first blessing stuff, a lot of yoga, meditation. There's an entire huge self-help, section in every bookstore. And then there's a huge development of the third blessing, right? Of nonprofits, of like, let's save the world kind of stuff, the environment, whatever. But it's never conjoined with marriage as the bridge. And that's a unique selling point of our faith, but also of how to actually have it all in life is, yes, you need to be a thriving individual who has a connection to contribution, meaningful contribution and purpose to the world. But your marriage is actually what keeps you strong when you have nothing left to give, okay? And if you want an example of that, you can look at that, the theory of everything, the story of Richard Hawkins, which he missed the point in the movie. I don't know how accurate the movie is, but in the movie, his wife got him through the most difficult times, and then he cheated on her later and he forgot. All of his ideas are not his. They were actually his and his wife's. And my wife and I watched this and we're like, oh, this guy didn't get it at all. He took all the credit, but he could not have come up with those ideas unless he had a loving person nurturing and taking care of him while he was getting sick, okay? So he was able to do all three, survive his sickness, I think Parkinson's or something like that, together with, coming up with this theory that changed physics, but only because of his marriage. So think about that, okay? they're all connected and they all feed off of each other. This is my last slide. I'm going to shut up soon. There's a discussion in the Bible and Revelations, which is one of the most weird and complicated chapters of the Bible. And it talks about like 144,000 people go to heaven, right? And so some religions were formed, meaning like we can only have 144,000 members and then everybody else is going to hell. That's not what this is about. This is, I believe that there's going to be a critical mass in this world when there's that round number, when there's enough families that really are magnetically like God is at the center and they're really giving each other the real love, the cosmic love, and they're producing results that we cannot do individually. You're stronger, like the sum is greater than the parts if there's harmony. Otherwise, it's just this confusing mosaic that doesn't make any impact, to be honest. So that's it, guys. It's like I think it's a 25-minute presentation in about 17 minutes. So that's it. So I hope this was just to stimulate some thought, guys. People put this kind of work on the back burner, especially in today's society. And if you look at the stats, fewer and fewer people are getting married. And it's not because it's not an appealing proposition. I just feel like people have a deep fear of it. And it's because they don't have enough good examples of really thriving marriages. And so if you know anybody, hang around those people and ask them questions. Like people in thriving marriages, talk to them. And that'll help formulate a vision. And the stronger your vision, the more it will compel you into positive, clear actions. And you'll get exactly that. God wants you to have nothing short of that. But it takes work. And a lot of people show up to the blessing like, hey guys, I'm ready. Like, no, you're not ready. You didn't do anything. You don't just like inherit love. You got to work for it. So anyway, I hope you can understand that. It takes work, but it's the best work ever. When you're comfortable in your family, it is the most comfortable that you can ever be. It's more comfortable than the most like lush sweater. It's more comfortable than the best pair of socks you've ever put on. It's more comfortable than the best food. It's like the most comfortable that your soul could ever be. But when you're when your family's struggling, it's the most uncomfortable you can be. And I think it brings out the best in us. But I'm gonna shut up because I said I was done and then I just kept on talking. So I gotta go too. But you guys are awesome. Thank you guys for listening and for contemplating this. This puts you ahead of the pack. The fact that you're thinking about this and willing to hear it. Alex, I gotta go. Thank you guys so much. Sorry to dash, but I have to record something right now with somebody.
Oh, thank you so much, Andrew, again. Hey, let's give you some love. Did you have any questions by any chance that we could cover? Or can we come up with some now?
You can, I hope you can come up with them because
Okay.
I'm going to listen.
Okay.
All right, thank you guys. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.